With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Prakim Rambam, Hilchais Mechira Prakim Chav Beis, Chav Gimel, and Chav Dalet, beginning with Perek Shnayim Be'esrim, starting with the 22nd chapter. We're going to be learning about kinyanim that are ineffective, beginning with the rules that you cannot create or transfer an item if the item is not yet in the world, right? A davar shaloi ba'la olam. You cannot make a transference on an item that's not in the reshus of the meicher. We're going to be learning about making a transference to a fetus or to a living animal. We're going to learn about making a kinyan for something that's not considered something that has tangibility. It's davar she'einoi mamashi. And at the end, the power of nidrei hegdish and tzedakah, even regarding items that are not yet in the world. Perek Shnayim Be'esrim has 17 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph, says the Rambam. Ein adam makna l'chaveru davar shelo b'lo'il. A person cannot transfer ownership of an article that is not yet in the world. And that is whether you're making a sale, whether you're giving a gift. Now, a matna shchiv mina is a person who's on one's deathbed, a person who's deathly ill. And the rule is that his matanos have a special power. Even his word is as effective as a kinyan seder. But even when it comes to making an actual kinyan, you cannot make a kinyan regarding something that's not yet in the world. Ketzad, for example, if a person makes the following kinyan, that whatever this field will produce, machur lach is sold to you. Did not produce any of it yet. Everything that's going to come out of this tree, nasullah. To new masha tailored behemazul leplini, the animal is not even pregnant yet. Loy kana klum v'chein chol chayoytze boze. However, halacha beis hamoiched peiros dekol chaveroim. There we go. Based on the above, if a person is selling all of the fruits of a date palm, being that there is no kinyan, right? So you are allowed to retract af achar shabo apedus lo'ilam. That's the word, because the kinyan was not effective in the beginning. So even though the loikeach harvested the fruit, it still not is. Now, vim shamat halikeach v'achel. Once he chapped it, he harvests it, and he eats it, then ein motzin miyadoi. And b'chol hachoyze by mishneim is not even chayiv to get a mishapara, which is the rule of what happens after money is transferred, even though because of rabbinic reasons, the sale, the transference is not final, but at least you're subject to a mishapara, not even a mishapara. However, if a person sells a product at the current market price, the person who's selling it, he himself does not actually have it, but this item is now available on the market. That sale is valid. And if he will not do it, then he'll get a mishapara. Because if we're speaking about he's going to get a mishapara, if the money was already paid. So you have to appreciate, if I don't have it, but this item is found now in the market, and the ikar is that it already has a market price. It's a davar shabala oilam, and even though I don't own it, my sale is effective. And if money was exchanged and then there's a retraction, like any other sale, chayva mishapar. Halacha dal. Misha pasak al shar shebashuk sheyiton like arba soin chitin for one seller. So that was the agreement that they made, and he paid. Now im hayashubalim. Imayishabala means that even if the grain was only in stalks, hadeza kana enough to be mekabel lamishapara, like by any other sale, even though he spoke about chitim and they are still in their shabalim, it's still considered a valid sale. V'hu sheyeira bagoydem. In other words, what is important is that the seller shows the koina that he possesses it in his storehouse, or if he told, I am relying on you. But if he didn't actually show him the shibalim, and he didn't tell him the words, I'm relying that this sale is going to go through, then we say, Because the Meicher tells himself, Shema Pasek Emacher. Don't forget, this guy only has Shibalim. He definitely does not have an ideal product to be sold. So if he shows him, this is what I have, and we're making a kinyan for this, that's a normal sale. Money was exchanged, at least they're going to be Makabal Mishapara. But it's normal for people to go around and they're searching for products, and they're making up with one Meicher and making up with another Meicher. Being that it was not yet fully readied, if he did not say these two statements, then there was no proper kinyan. Halacha hey. If something is not in the possession of the seller, it cannot be acquired by Ketzad, for example, again, we're not speaking about wheat that is now to be bought in the market. If someone says, that which I will inherit from my father, now what he will inherit from his father is ba'olam. The father already owns the real estate, but it's not yet his, it's not in his rishus, is garnished. Or if he says, the fish are out there, but they're not yet caught in his net. From then, it's already going to be sold to you. The person who will be bequeathing after his passing to this guy. So let's say Yaakov is a goises, and Reuven is here, and Veratza, the heir, wants to sell his nachasiv ma'at. Why does he want to sell a little bit? In order for him right away to cover the expenses of the burial. So even though we just said in halacha hey, that even if a person is saying Mashi Irashma Avi Machulach, it's not valid, here it will be valid. In the case where the child is with the bain is an ani, then Yishtaha Meisvi is Baza. If you're gonna have to begin to go sell property, sell things after the passing, then the burial will be delayed. So Tiknu Chachamim She'emachar Ba'amar Mashi Irashma Avi Ayoy Machulach, then Memkarikai. Similarly, at Saya, that's an ani, a fisherman, that's poor, a trapper, that's poor. That says there we're saying how much mishum kadei chayav. There is a limit to that, but that's a takonas chacham. Halacha zay. Haben shemachar b'nichsei av b'chayav, and as we just explained, that sale is invalid. What happened was that sadly the son passed away while his father was still alive. And by the way, the son left a son. So let's go to Yitzchak and to Yaakov and to the Reuven. So it began by Yaakov making the sale when Yitzchak was alive, and Yaakov passes away and Yitzchak is still alive. And then Mesoav, then Yitzchak passes away. Now we're speaking about a case where the only heir now is going to be Reuven. Reuven is the son of the first guy, the grandson of the one who passed away last. Bain, Haben, the grandson will take that property away from the purchaser, which, as we mentioned, the sale was not valid. In other words, it comes out that the Nimtza Hanachasim were still in the reshus of the father, and then when the father passes away, Halacha ches. Mishanas and karka matan halacha. The nasan layal gabo meyadinadim. And if you remember, we learned the concept above of called kinyan agav karka. So if there would have been 100 dinarim right there, then we say that when the kinyan is made on the land, the money automatically is transferred. So indeed, based on the rule of kinyan agav, but if the person did not have actual dinarim, then ein mechayven as hanoisen liton leimei dinarim. Because if you did not have it, that's halacha hey, davar she'enoi b'reshusei shel makna, people could get money, but they don't have the money. Who are then and any other movable item that they are required. That's halacha. Now, what happens? So, in other words, let's say Reuven has something of his under the custodianship of Shimon. Is it b'reshusai? The answer is, if it's there, yes, it's b'reshusai. Harei makneu. Reuven, the owner, the owner doesn't have it in his house, but he's allowed to affect a proper kinyan, b'matana, lefisha hapikadin. It's called b'reshus ba'alav. It doesn't matter that it's physically in Shimon's home. It's considered in the reshus of Reuven. You can say maybe Shimon stole it, maybe Shimon the house got burnt down. Halachically, we don't take that into account. In other words, halachically, we presume that the item is still there. And if Shimon denies even having anything of Reuven, so then because now it's as if it's lost, and therefore it's considered not to be in his reshus. In contrast, Abul Hamilva, when there is a loan, the purpose of a loan, when I lend you the $100, that money will be spent. It's considered eina ba'eina. That money is not there, and therefore the ein adam yachalak noisai. We're speaking about making a kinyan on money agaf karka. So I'm saying that since Shimon owes me money, I'm selling you my land. I'm selling you together with that. Doesn't work. There is one exception, as we already learned. We went to some Pedic 6. And so that's the exception, and we don't learn anything from this exception. However, if it's documented, guys, we learned all this above. Then you could make a kinyan, but you have to write another document, writing that you're selling this document, and you have to give over both of these documents. And therefore it will be effective.
So how exactly the presence of the three makes it valid? I don't understand that.
In other words, we're just saying that you cannot make a kinyan on something that's not bo'el. Then we also established that even though, Yakir, let's say you owe me money, that's not considered the davar shabala oil. The rule the rule is that if you owe me money and I owe Kevan money and we're all together, and I tell you, Yakir, don't give the money to me, since I owe that amount of money to Kevan, give it to Kevan. When we all agree, you owe the money to Kevan. No, we made a kinyan, aside of the fact that it was verbal, but we made a transaction regarding a loan. That does work. Why? Davar she'ein baitam. Halacha. Shem she'ein adam makna davar shaloi b'lo olam. Now we're learning another rule. Kach einoi makna lemi shaloi b'lo olam. The article is here, but the party that's receiving it, whether he's the purchaser, whether he's the recipient of the gift, that party also has to be ba'olam. Meaning, afilu ubar hareyu kemi shaloi b'lo olam kimi. And we'll see there's an exception. And therefore, even though you made a kinyan, you did nothing like Hana, with the exception of who's in the mother's womb. That's why, yes, Kana.
That means daughter too, right?
Probably. Child. In other words, what the Rambam is really saying is that an uber is ba'olam. But since you can't see him, you don't have Gemiras Das. You don't have Gemiras Das. If it's your child, you have Gemiras Das. Halacha Yudal. Ha'emer le'ishtay. Nechasai labonim shetel b'mimeni. No, it's my property are to the children that we will have together. As we mentioned, even though it's your children, she's not even pregnant here. That's mamish, not ba'olam. Harei lo yikro klum. Shekivan shaloy nis abra behem shasa matana. There have to be. It has to be something, not nothing. When I was in yeshiva, I remember there was a Meshuggah woman that she left up was $12 million for a dog. This all comes from the Torah. A person is transferring some of theirs to a chaya. Welcome to LA. Lo yikna klum. Didn't work. They don't own it. Hikna mixas nachasav lebehema. Oy lemisha balo oilam. And that part is invalid, but only some of it. And then he adds to a person, you should acquire like that animal. You should acquire like that fetus. So since the first step is not valid, you linked the second step to the first step. So but if he tells him Knei at ubehemazu, Oyat ve'ubar zeh, you were not toilo one on the other. You want to give half and half. Well, the half to the animal doesn't work. The half to the uber does not work. The half to you does work. So you will be kind of mechs. Now we're learning another rule. Halacha Yud Gimel. Ein adam makna loy b'mecher loy b'matana elo davar sheyesh boy mamish. Has to be mamoshes dik. It has to be something with substance. It has to be something that's tangible. Avol davar she'ein boy mamish. That which is not tangible, ein anikna, cannot be transferred through a kinyan. For example, halacha Yud Daled. Ein adam makna reach tapuach zeh. Imagine selling the scent of an apple. As sophisticated as people think they are, this is sophisticated. Someone should do it. Not that it's going to be valid halachically, but you get good ideas when you learn. Sell the scent. Sell the tam, the taste of the dvash. Sell the ein habidoilach, the color. You're selling the color of the crystal, not the crystal. The color of the
the tam must be tangible. It has to be something you put in your mouth. How tam dvash makes sense? By reach, it's verstandig, but the dvash, but the tam dvash, it's tangible, Rabbi.
I would humbly challenge by saying, I know this in the negative, that hashgacha prat is there is some not the living rodent in the shul. You can taste it. It's in your mouth. That maybe the whole thing was for you to answer to Yakira, and now Hashem will help us. We'll find a rodent. We'll get rid of it. You never know. Mamash, it can work this way. Lefikach hamakna lachaveru diras bayezem. I'm not selling you the house. I'm selling you the dwelling of the house, or the eating. Here, that's the answer to you. The eating of the paytas. You're right. You're right, Yakir. Tam means eating, but I'm not selling you the food itself. The food I'm keeping. I'm giving you the right to eat it. Like Kana, you did nothing. Now, I want you to know, guys, right away, that next chapter will be the wording that will circumvent all of this. Because people say people do that. You have to speak about the item itself, as we're going to see in the next chapter. In other words, I'm transferring the property with regard to its use. I'm giving you the property only for you to use it. That you could do, because you're mentioning that
you could hold an apple and let somebody smell it.
No. The question is, if you made a kinyan, in other words, I not only am I doing that, I'm charging for it. Not only am I charging, I want to know whether the kinyan was valid. If the kinyan is not valid, then after I take the money, I can retract. I can say the kinyan was not valid. There you go. Halacha tezva. Now, the final topic of this chapter, din ha'hegdish. When it comes to consecrating something to the holy temple, or giving a gift to poor people, or any type of neder, if you're using the word neder. Einoi kidin ha'hegid b'kneyasoi. She'ilu omar adam kol ma shetevel behem tiyeh hegdish. The better kabbai is your mamish making a statement regarding futures. It's not ba'olam. Or you're making a vow. Whatever my animal will give birth, the animal is not even pregnant. When it's born will be asad on me. Or if you make any pledge to tzedakah, it's not consecrated, but you're chayiv to follow through with it. In our Girs and the Rambam, he quotes the pasuk, and now, and he says, Kol ma sheyoitzi ilon zeh, yinasen laniyim. Or kol schar bayizeh, the future should go to aniyim. Being that matnas chivmira is as if his words is as if there is a kinyan. And even though he's speaking about the futures, but now that we said in Halacha Tezvav that when it comes to aniyim, we're putting anything for the poor on the same category of hegdish, that the gavras chayiv to follow through. So then we say it's amazing. Zochu behem aniyim. Wow. In other words, if he would, the guy would have to do it. If I pledge to ani, I have to follow through. So do the people who get from the person.
But if he said that about his sons, that wouldn't be true, right?
No, it's only halacha of aniyim. Exactly.
Aniyim, right?
Yes, and the final halacha Yud Zayin And they say, however, the Rambam writes clearly, I disagree with these guys. Which is why if it's loy bala oilam, it's ineffective. But a person is mitzvah l'kayim devar b'tzedak. Oy b'hegdish k'moishu mitzvah l'kayim aneder, as we learned in Ilchas Arachin, and therefore this whole issue of davar shaloi bala oilam is not relevant to hegdish, aniyim, and to nedarim. And now we're moving
Rabbi,
on. Yes.
So is there no concept of futures according to the Rambam?
So that's why I'm rushing to chapter 23. You have to know how to deal with futures. There's a way of wording it. It's not just semantics. It's you're doing it. You have to know what you have to know how to do it. No, it's Pedek Shleisha Asim will be telling you how you can transfer ownership of a property with regard to the produce that it yields.
Got it.
Okay, and that will be effective. Okay, and the same thing will be many other items of how we're going to work around the rule that we learned in the previous chapter. Pedek Shloisha B'Esem has 15 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. The Rambam writes in the positive, Makne Odom Haguf Leperois. Then you could transfer ownership of property itself only with regard to its produce. In other words, the koina only has the rights to the produce, but you made the transference even prior to the produce coming into the world, and he will own the produce. Just to be symmetrical with the previous chapter, there it's only needed the word. The word is like the kinyan. Because the item itself, the property itself is matzui. Elama, you're just being makne itla peiros. The best example is renting a house or renting a field. The whole point of rental is that the person doesn't own it, but during the time of the rental, they have all the user fruit. And that's not called futures because the apartment is here. Yet it works. For example, selling you the field for its fruits. And whether you're only making that sale, that kinyan, for Zman Kotsu, all of the lifetime of the Lekeach. And furthermore, it's a tree. I'm making a kinyan on the tree regarding and only regarding the produce, but the tree is boiling. Or a rachel, a shepsele for all of the shearing. The shearing did not grow yet.
How is this different than from Tetvav? Tetvav is about a tree, and you can't give it to anyone but the poor.
No. There, you're selling only the paytas. You're selling only the paytas. Here, you're saying, I'm selling you the tree only for the paytas. You're selling the behem. You're selling the shivcha for her children. In all of these, now, what happens? There's a din that if someone's animal kills someone else's servant, the owner of the animal has to pay the knas. Says that Rambam machal abdoi for the knas. That she'im yugach v'yamus hiya knas shalekeyach. Here there's a doubt. How is it a doubt? Because the peiros come from the tree naturally. I'm selling my tree for the peiros. The knas doesn't come from the eved. The knas is that if someone accidentally, someone's animal killed the eved, the owner has to out of pocket. So there's a doubt. And that's how the Rambam always paskins when it comes to doubts. But the imtav was like knas, halacha daled. However, Atkan guys, I own the field, and I'm selling my field to you only regarding the produce. In other words, I retain the field for me, and I'm selling you the produce forever. Lizman Kosov, it's a fact. What happens if I'm selling my tree, my field to two people? To one, I'm selling the tree proper. To the other one, I'm selling the produce of the tree. Here it's going to be problematic. In other words, when he made the first sale, when he sold to Reuven the tree, he did not clearly say that I'm holding back the right to the fruit. He didn't say that. First kinyan was the tree. So the second guy who only acquired the paytas acquired nothing. But if he sold the tree and he said right away, I'm keeping the rights to the fruit to myself, then hadez a shir makoy ma paytas afalpi. In the beginning of Dalad, you have to say the words, I'm leaving over the place, the makim apedis. If you didn't say the word makim when you were talking about leaving it to yourself, that doesn't matter. Because legaba atzmai, we say, ba'ayin yafim mishayid, you act generously for yourself. When you speak to another, if you don't speak out, you're leaving over the place from where the paytas come out, then it's not going to be effective. Then it's not going to be effective. Because you have to have the rights to the place from where the fruits come out to be able to take the fruits. So when you sell it to two different people, you have to be a lot clearer in sale A to leave enough for there to be a sale B. Halacha hey, hamachal guf hakakal is man kotzuv. Now we're not speaking about user. We're speaking about selling land, but for a certain amount of time. So it sounds like a rental. It's not like a rental. The Rambam will explain soon how this is not a rental. It's during that time, it's a full-fledged sale. Also, if there is paytas, and then at the end, whatever is as it is at the end, so the Rambam says, hold on. Isn't it the same thing? No. The Rambam explains, if you acquire something or bequeath something, you give something, you transfer only lepedas, the recipient cannot do anything with the land itself. And by the way, the same thing is with the rental. Same idea. If you buy something for a certain amount of time, when you bought it, it's mamish yours. You can build, you can be hoidis, you can destroy. Wow. Halacha zayin. Now, ma hefresh yesh bein hamoicher saduzu lepeiros seha, which is how we began this chapter with. Ubein hamoicher peiros saduzu lachaveiroi sheloikana. So one more time, when you sell Sada Zu Lepeiros Seha, you got a good. When you sell Peiros Sada Zu Lechavero, it's Davar Shaloi Belo Olam. Kamay Shubiyanu Shahamoichet Peiros Hasada Ein La Likeach. So once, what are we talking about over here? Okay, this is important, guys. Even though we learned in the previous chapter, let me just go back for a second, that when you're moicher peiros, you're moicher the peiros, then the kinyan is not valid. But we have to add something that the Rambam, for some reason, did not write it explicitly, but it's connected to when he spoke about a neder. If a person makes a shavua that I will sell the produce that will grow from this land, when it grows, I'm chayiv to follow through with my oath. But there's no kinyan. What will be the difference when you sell peiros hasadem? Even though, like we mentioned, in the case where it's going to be binding, there you don't even have the right to enter the field. In other words, the Baal Hasada does with the field everything that he wants. Which whenever selling futures is effective because you were bound, like when you give it to an ani, right? But the ani only has the right to the peiros. He has no rights to come into the field. Which is the topic of this chapter, Perek Chav Gimel. It's crazy. Imagine the owner cannot even enter there. By the way, kechevtzoi does not mean like we had in Allah Chavav. He cannot build and destroy. But as far as the peiros is concerned, if I made a kinyan to have, so to say, ownership in this land regarding its produce, I have the rights of coming and going. The owner doesn't even have those rights. Now, ma hefresh yesh ben koide sadazul lepeiros seha, which is again the topic of Perek Chav Gimel. And b'chlal soicher sadeh mechaveiroi rental shakoin sadeh lepeiros seha. Listen to this. Then the guy that bought it, yeshloi, he has the right. That was what he bought, to seed it, to plant any type that he wants, or even if he wants to leave it fallow. The hasoicher einoi came. And we're going to learn many more details when it comes to schiras. In other words, a soicher cannot change the norm of what people do in this field. Sometimes you have certain areas where one part of land they would leave fallow for one season and then they would plant it. And the other season, there's like a whole cycle. The soicher cannot change any of that cycle.
I wonder why Rambam is using the word kone and mocher and not hakira, no?
And one more
I'm
time?
asking, I don't know.
I missed that.
Hakira sounds like a better. Hakira sounds a better word than selling. Well, he says because you're doing it forever. You made a sale. One guy bought forever. Okay. I hear you. Now also the ein hasoicher shoy lahaskin, another than a renter cannot sublease it. But the chol hakoina, if you're buying sada lepeidoi sell, then yeah, whatever you own, you can sell. Gewaltig. Maklacheni k'meshakon. Halachates. Hamoicher peida shoivach. You're selling the benefit that's to be obtained from this shoivach, from this dovcoat, and or the peidos of this kavedah, slachaveda. So the Rambam says the guy acquired the ein ze moicher davar shlo yibel oilam lefi she'einoi moicher yoinim sheyivoldu oy devas sheyavel lekaveres. That's not what you're selling. Ella, you are selling the shoivach with regard to its peidos. You are selling the kaveres with regards to its zvash. And the example of, in other words, even though you didn't speak it out as much as you needed to, as the Rambam wrote down in the beginning of Perek Chav Gimel, but by a shoivach and by a kaveres, it's fine. It's self-understood. Similarly, when a person is soicher amasalayim lechaver, I'm renting a stream. Renting a stream means that whoever bought those rights gets to fish there. Because he is acquiring the stream for the fish. And vedin kulam kedin hasoicher bayis lechaveri k'may shebiyarnu. That what that the buyer shunehena b'chol hanoi sheyesh boy v'chein chol chayotze b'zeh. Now halachiyut beitzim or fledglings that are not big enough to fly on their own, where there's a mitzvah in the positive and in the negative, right? Shalech to shalach hasoim, v'sabaram tikach loch loisikach ha'em alabanim. So the din is that that you have in the shoivach. Now, a guy bought the peiros of the shoivach. As long as they are not able to fly, the midrabanan you did not acquire it, and that's exeda midrabanan because it says loisikach ha'em al habanim. Loisikach ha'em. It's very interesting that taking, according to the Rambam, taking the mother, taking the children from the mother, taking the children and not the mother, Rambam, it's not us in midrabanan. It's not us in doiraisa. It's us in midrabanan. That's the gzeiras chachamim. So since midra knows you cannot take the mother and the children, you cannot take them. You taking only the fledglings is a violation of a rabbinic law. And therefore, you don't own it. And if you don't own it, you're not going to go take it. Since you don't yet own it, so you have to be metapeach ala shoivach. You have to shake the shoivach in order for them to fly. And now you acquired it because you bought the shoivach lepedus. Kinyan stam, we learned already is kinyan chalip. Oyal gav karka. Halacha Yudal. Halikeach Pedro Shevach Machavedoim. Another interesting thing, that you cannot take everything, you cannot empty it out. Why? Because when you empty out all of the pedas, which is all of the fledglings, all of the children, the mothers will run away, and that entire shoivach will be completely destroyed. And that's not fair. You only bought the offsprings, so you have to leave enough of the offsprings for the shoivach to remain populated. And now that Rambam is telling you, Pashat al Pitava, how that works. Halacha Yud Beis. How many fledglings do you have to leave? So if when you bought it, you never bought the imois, guys. You only bought the pedas, but there was already banois. And the way they give birth in batches. So maniach berecha reshoino, shoyolido ha'imois. After you made the purchase, the mothers will give birth again. That other patch, it's really both patches. It's the first patch that was already there. And then there's going to be one more. And in other words, you want to make sure that there's two groups of fledglings, two batches that you leave. Then everyone is connected, and then the mothers won't leave. The two that we just mentioned. And now, similarly, when it comes to a beehive, restrictions. So now, what are you buying? There's honey, and there's also the bees themselves. So you acquired 3 swarms of bees that come out of this beehive. 1, 2, 3. That's what you bought. You cannot take all of it. You take one and you leave one. You take one and you leave one. Why? The same logic. Because if you keep on taking all of these swarms, there comes a certain point where the whole kaveris will become destroyed. Similarly, chalis are those black blocks of wax, right, that you have in the kaveris, that is really the honey. So if that is what you bought, you have to leave in the chaveris 2 pieces, 2 chalas. Because if not, all the bees will leave. And the final halacha in this chapter, halacha tezvav, halakeach zeisin mechaveda lokans. You're buying olive trees to cut down as lumber. So we're going to have bekitzer as atakana, that even though I bought your tree for lumber, I have to leave enough of a stump in the ground when it comes to trees that regenerate if you leave such a stump. And you can't say, I bought the tree for lumber. No, you got to leave enough for it to regrow back. It's going to grow back to the owner, not to you. But that's the way it works. So like this, every tree has a different teva. Comes to a zaysim, you have to leave the closest part to the ground, shtei geroifiyos, 2 fistfuls. And then, v'koitzitz. If you're buying psula shikama, shikama is a wild fig tree that was never harvested, psula shikma, then might be a shloisha tvachim.
What is this? Sycamore?
A sycamore tree, I'm sorry. So here, 2 tvachim won't be enough. 2 groifiyos. You have to leave 3. Sadin shal shikma, not a psula. Then shnei tvachim. Ubisharo ilanois, it's amazing. It's enough 1 tefach for the stump to regrow. Now, when it comes to kanim and gefanim, reeds or vines, here also you cut it down until minapkak ulamaylo. You cut it from the lowest knot up. In other words, from the lowest knot to the ground, you leave. But the kolam amarazim, palm trees, cedar trees, they're not going to grow back. Since they're not going to grow back, so then chayfiromashas, then you take all of the wood, you take the roots, you bought the tree, you bought the wood. And from here you see, in other words, en gizay machlav goes on to kolam and arazim. The reason why you have to leave is because you want for it to regenerate. Today's third chapter.
But I thought we were not allowed to kill a fruit tree completely.
So that's another good kasha, Kevin. That's like a good to point it out. There are exceptions to that. Halachically, even though we try not to do it, one exception will be whenever the tree is producing so little fruit, if any, that the expense of hiring workers to get that is not even covered by the fruit. And then there are other exceptions where the location is needed. Something more important has to be made there. Don't forget that we're living in cities. These cities were built where by Hashem left these places filled with trees. So there was a lot of deforestation for people to settle. So there are certain halachas, but yeah, it's good to point out. And we're even in scenarios where we don't have an issue cutting the tree, we're careful, nevertheless, not to do it directly. And when we could, we hire people to uproot the tree and to replant it. That's also another way of attempting not to go and cut trees down. Okay, Perek Arba Ve'esrim is going to be about when you make a sale of one item, what is automatically included in it. We're going to begin when a person is selling 3 trees, if they are planted within a certain parameter, if they are planted in a certain setup, then automatically the land was included in this in the trees, and many other such halachas. As we'll see, Perek Arba Ve'esrim has 17 halachas, beginning with halacha al. You made a sale of 3 trees. You only mentioned trees. Even though they're very small, they were just planted, or they're not even that. They're shloishe badei ilani. So one of the ways that they used to graft, they used to take a tree and they would take a branch and they would bend it over and insert it in the ground. And sometimes they would not even sever it from the original tree. The edge of the branch that's inserted in the ground would become like a tree for itself. In other words, the Rambam is giving scenarios where you have somehow 3 trees, more details coming. The rule is, even though land was never mentioned, the amount of land that's needed for the nurturing of these trees were automatically included. And therefore, now that we say that even though land was not mentioned, it's nichlal, the lekeach owns the land. If he owns the land, so then now if these trees that you bought, they dried out, they were cut out, he owns that land, and therefore he can plant new trees. Another detail, if in this area there are other trees, you only bought 3. But if the derech mamela 3 includes the karka, the kana kol ha'ilan should be named. Wow. Halacha base. Now the karma hiya karka ro'elahem. So the land underneath it, the land beinayim, but that's only in between them. But what about beyond the 3 trees? How far beyond Maloi ha'oire v'saloi? The space that's needed for a person who's picking the fruits with a basket to be there, and you should know that that's be'erech 2 amos. V'zeh hamakim shehu maloi ha'oire v'saloi. Maloi ha'oire v'saloi is beyond. We're going to see soon that these dinim is only when the 3 trees are triangulated. So the areas in between it is fully the lekeachs. Beyond that is maloi ha'oire v'saloi. The Rambam says, yeah, he owns it, but no one can use it. In other words, he only owns it as far as he has the right to pick his trees. That land is needed for the nurturing of the trees. But other than that, he cannot do what he wants over there. The Meicher also cannot do what he wants. If the Meicher is going to start working there, planting stuff there, then if any of the fruits fall, it's going to get soiled, it's going to get ruined. No one can use that land. That's only b'shahayu shloishes ilanos oimdim. If they're standing, they're triangulated. It's like the 3 feet of a range. In other words, it's a triangular. And the hashlishi mechuvim b'neihem u'menuchak mehem. Number 1, not on a line, triangular. Number 2, there is a minimum amount of space, minimum and maximum. Ben kol ilan ve'ilan, at least 4 amas, and max 16 amas. Because the moment it's not in that configuration and in that area, then every tree is a tree for itself. It's not 3 trees. Halacha dalot. Now, what happens if it's very borderline? It's 16 or it's 16 and a little bit. How do you get it right? Min ha'ikar ha'rachav shalei lanos. From the wide portion of the trunk, that is from where you measure. Avalim hoyo im lo hoyo im demetzora hazois. Oisho im ekarav pachas marba amas. They're very close, even though they were triangulated. They're farther than the 16 amas or more. Ooh, that you did not buy them together. Two are in the field, and one is on the boundary line. And one is in the field of his chaver. Now hold on. If it's in the field of the chaver, then it's not your field. You previously bought one tree in the field of your chaver. Yeah, it's in the field of your chaver. You bought that tree. Now you are selling that tree with two of yours. Or even if they were all in your property, but there was something that's being mafsikit, or even a Rosh Hashanah, and furthermore, then you have to go. It's a complete different sale. And as we lent, and therefore what happens if a tree grows and a new branch begins to come out? So you have to cut it out. You have to cut it away. Only
the
Very
trunk,
nice.
right?
Huh?
Only if it's from the trunk,
Correct. No,
not
it's
the rest of the tree.
anything that's going to disturb the
Block away.
balasada's ability of getting around there has to be cut out. Now, again, guys, I just want to mention that when we spoke about the halacha beis, the maloi ha'ed of saloi is in the area around the tree. The area in between is fully yours. If it grows in the area in between, doesn't matter. If it's going out. However, but twigs and small branches, not a real starke branch, even if they're coming out of the roots, and which is gavaldik. In other words, if you wouldn't own the karka, then you would say the wood that comes out from that which is visible belongs to the owner of the tree. No, even from the roots. It's coming from the ground, you own the ground. But you don't have to cut them out. The cutting out is only if it's a very big, thick branch. Not three, but two. And therefore, just like the Rambam wrote already before, in Halach Dalet, that it makes so ilan sense. Ain't like klum. Higdilo shnei ho'ilanis. And they gave out sodigaman amirim. So first of all, you got to cut them out. Why? Shema yemoshchu ba'aretz, because they might grow into the earth, these branches, and then he'll say, I bought three, there are three. Shloish ilanis macharti and v'yesh likar. Halacha zay. Kol ha'etzim shekoitzes baal shnei ilanis mehem. So the rule is like this: we have to cut it out. Maybe not to say he has three, but who owns it? So if it's coming out of the gezach, if that's gezha, if it's coming out of the trunk, trunk means the part of the tree that can see the sun, not under the ground. Then it belongs to the Baal Ilanis. However, meaning because the land belongs to this Baal Hasad. Why? Because lefisha ein lohem geza. That's the way we look at a dekel. It's something that has. It's amazing. It was anything that's coming out of the dekel, we view it as if it's growing directly out of the roots, even though it looks like it's coming out of the trunk. It halachically doesn't have a din of a trunk. Halacha ches. Hamoitzi karka tzadik atomar yifroch.
Deal because it's clearly it's a deck. I'm not, but it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. I know.
As far as decker goes,
Tzaddik Atomer Yifrach means, according to this Rambam, that by tzaddikim there's no such a thing as gezha. That's the pshat. That a deck Atomer doesn't have gezha. Halacha ches. It's all coming from the same shayrish. Shayrish echad l'kulan. Hamoicher karka and v'shir hoylanis. Now, guys, Atkan was the opposite. The guy owns the land. He's selling 3 ilanis. So he meant he sold the land. Now it's the opposite. The guy is selling the land and he's keeping for himself the 3 trees. And guys, when he says he's keeping trees, it's 3. So the din is, wow. Guys, we're not speaking about the whole field. We're speaking about the karka that's ru'uya le'ilanois. He only gets half of that. She'ilu lo'ishir bekarka. Because he has to keep some of it. Because if he's not going to keep some of it, then the buyer is going to tell him, get rid of your trees. It's interesting. In other words, he's selling more. When you're selling the land, you're selling more. You're stuck at keeping, but you're only keeping half of the amount we learned until now. Whatever is needed for the trees, and you get half of that. No, don't forget, the guy's buying the land. So here, even by only 2 trees, you did keep, but elama, whatever you kept is divided with the lekeach. Halacha 9. That's the beginning of this chapter. Like we mentioned, as we learned in halacha base. Now, what happens if you divide the purchases? You sell land to one person, you sell ilanis to the other person. So here's the rule. As we had in halacha ches. Halacha yud. That's the way they divide it. You take an orchard and you take a stay lovin, a field of grain. And they're adjacent to each other. And guys, when you harvest a pardes, you need space. So yesh labal hapardes, even though it was not spoken, arba amos betoich stay lovin asmucha, 4 amos on that edge of the field of grain, which is right adjacent to L'Soifa Ilonishal Pardes, because Sha'almanas Kain Chalku, even though they never verbalized that. When you have an orchard, like we mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, that beyond the 3 trees, you have to harvest things. You need space to work. So it's self-understood that that's included in the chelik of the Pardes. The Eino Tzarech Lafarish Davar Zeh, Mipnei Shehu Davar Yoduam. Halacha Yud Aleph, Hamoicher Stad Lechavedoim, V'hoy B'adu Kolim. And now the seller says, Chutz mi dekel ploini, I'm selling you, but not that dekel. Im dekel tevim mushubachu. So then we say that he only meant to keep that one. Oisa dekel levadi hushashir, and all of the other trees go to the lekeah. But if that dekel that he specified is nothing special, or atzra, then we said he didn't mean to keep only that dekel. He meant to keep even that dekel. Kol shcheina sha'ad. In other words, like kanim and adakalim kol. Wow.
Common sense.
Well, that's, I don't know. The guy says, he's saying, chutz mi dekel pliny. Chutz mi dekel pliny, it means all of the dekalim. Halacha yud beis. Machar loy sadav amaloi. Chutz min ha'ilanois. That's already a much bigger statement, aside of all of the trees. Im yesh b'dekalim bilvad. Then he meant the column. You understand? Because ilanois, even though ilanois is not used for the column, but that's all there is. The im yesh b'gefanim bilvad. Shira gefanim. Even though normally you say gefanim b'shmai, but there's nothing else there. That if there's only one type of trees, that is what you had in mind. But these 2, so which one is more shaykh to trees? Interesting. Gefanim. But why is that? Because you're called moicher ba'ayin yafa moicher. In other words, really, the word ilanis is more shaykh to gefanim. The argument against it will be, but maybe he meant to keep for himself the dekolin. He did not mean to do that, because since kol hamoicher ba'ayin yafa moicher, the dekolim are more expensive. But really, in other words, the reason why we're saying that he kept back gefanim, because the word ilan is more shaykh to gefanim. That's really, we don't say the other way around, because he's not trying to be cheap to justify what he would use an unusual expression. He used the usual expression, or that which is the closest to the usual expression. Now, the im had the column shiur. Whenever you're leaving behind a dekel, what dekel? Leishir elo kol dekel gavoya. You only refer, a dekel is called a dekel if it's that tall that you can only climb it with a rope. That when they're not that height, it's not called a dekel. And v'hashaor hareyu shel loikeyach. Gevaldik. In other words, if it doesn't have that height, it's mamish part of the karka. The im shari lanu sushier loishir mehem elo kol she'ein ha'oil kaivshai. Another din, guys. Sometimes trees are so little, so flimsy, that if you have a yoke going by it, it bends it all over. If it's bending it over completely, if it doesn't stop a yoke, it's also not yet called a tree. It's not a tree. It's part of the land. Land and date palms. If the guy buys to the column, it's going to be a proper sale. Right? The guy says, I bought land and the column. Okay, I'm giving you land and I'm giving you to the column over there. I'm giving you what I said. No. The column. You never said the word but. Every word is important. Then it has to have the column. And the minimum is 2. If he uses the words karka shel the column, the column, he gets no the column. Because when you say a karka shel the column, all you mean is it's a land where you can plant the column, shaykh to grow the column. You didn't say that you already have these trees. Halacha yudal. When you're selling an orchard, you have to write knei locha. The kolim, utamarim, v'hutzim, you have to specify. Even though really, if you're selling a pardes and in the pardes you have date palms and you have palm branches, they will be included. Nevertheless, make a document more articulate. No yashtaring. That's an important rule.
I feel that I'm being nude. It's not a pardes, it's a rechev kalim. I know I'm being a nudge, but it's not. Pardes is for citrus. It's
that's
not for.
Because you're a Zionist. You're an Israeli. We're speaking Judaism.
Okay.
In the Mishnah, a pardes, obviously, that's what the column and tamarim. The point that Rambam is that even though the column,
it's rechev kalim, not a pardes, but I may be wrong.
If the girsa and the Rambam that we have is correct, then you are wrong. Could be it's a wrong girsa. The point that Rambam is making, Yakir, the point is that even though you could have gotten away by writing a more generic term, don't do that. Specify. It's called noyashtar. Right. I left nothing back for me. Now, if he wouldn't have written it, still it's better to write it. The more detail, the better it is. That I have transferred ownership, the umkai and the rumai, the depths and the heights. Even though you wrote that it's not enough, write that. You should know that Rambam writes that the oimek and the roim are not included if you don't specify. That's a very important rule.
Well, what does that mean? If someone sells their house, they retain like the mineral rights or the
Yes,
space above it?
No, the guy cannot even build a second story unless you specify. I almost own you my house. To be very careful. Now, even when you did that, what you did was, let's speak about the air. You only sold the air space. And which is the oivi haaretz. But if there is another, you sold a house. Now, guys, I know that you have to know English is different, but if you did the higher stories, if they were not specified, are not included. You have to write the house and the second story and the third story. The same thing if there's something already built in the ground, even though you wrote that I'm selling you the oimek, it doesn't automatically include a building that happens to be on the oimek. However, that's the way that includes everything. Then in other words, does mean not only the airspace, everything that's there, and that's
It's
the way you
amazing
should
that
write it.
Rambam knew It's amazing that Rambam knew years from then people have to buy airspace in Manhattan.
Airspace, amazing, yeah.
Not just a building.
Mamish. Halachat hazay. Hamoicha ba'is l'chaveiroi. I'm selling you the house on the condition that the highest, that penthouse, that the penthouse is mine. Okay, that's it. Now the point is, if he wants to now extend projections from his penthouse, which is going over the yard of the guy, then moitzi. Wow. Ve'im nafla, chayzer abanois. Ve'im rotza livnois al gaba, boinek shoy mikadem. In other words, all the guy has to do is, if the house collapsed, is to build it as it was before. But he has the right to build it as it was before. Final halacha yud zayin. If a person sells his grave, or the derech to his grave, or the makim ma'amada, as we learned in Shabbos' third chapter, or the beis haspedai. So the din is that even though someone bought it, when the seller dies, boim b'nei mishpacha, the koivrim sham against the will of the lekeach, because of something that's called pigam mishpacha. Now you have to understand something, guys. In other words, that part of the sale you'll have to pay for. The noise, the me'akever should cover with lekeach. He's going to get the money. But when a person sells his burial spot, it's really not a proper sale. Now, the only part in which there is a pigam mishpacha and money has to be given, just for the clarity, is the kever itself. The derech to the kever, the makom of the maimed, the house of the hesped, belongs to the lekeach. All that Rambam is saying is that when this seller dies, for his burial, people will use the derech without his permission. People will make a maimed without his permission. You understand? But money doesn't have to be paid. That's because after they go on the path, they're not on it anymore. The lekeach only loses that moment. But the cave in itself, because of the concept of pigam mishpacha, that goes back to the moicher. Once a guy is buried there, the lekeach cannot do anything. For the cave in itself, that Rambam writes that the money will have to be returned.
Wow,
I thought it would be a lot longer. Guys, Monday morning, 5:30-ish,